Coming up, the Nets post a historically bad defense through 4 games. I'll tell you what's causing the team struggle on that end and why I wouldn't expect too many changes right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And on today's show, I'm going to be talking about the Nets' defensive struggles and their rookie performances during a blowout loss to the Houston Rockets and early this season as a whole. But the Nets fell to the Rockets in Houston 137-109 tonight on the back end of a back-to-back. They were shorthanded. Yegor Dioman missed this game. Zaire Williams was also sidelined. And the Nets actually sent Drake Powell and Danny Wolf down to the G League. So both of those guys have not returned from ankle injuries. But the story of this game, and really the story of the beginning of this season for the Nets, is this historically bad defense that they have put on display in just about every game. They've fallen behind by 25 plus points in each one of their games this season, and the defense has been the driving factor behind that. You know, we spoke at length entering the season about the offensive struggles and what we expected on that end with these rookie ball handlers, why we expected a drop off there. And the offense has been nothing to write home about, but it hasn't been one of the worst in the league. The Nets are averaging around 115 points per game, around 20th in points per game right now, which obviously isn't good, but it's better than you would expect. It's really this defense that has been just abominably bad and holding them back from competing in a lot of these games. And, you know, that's something that, like, the defense wasn't good last year, but Jordi Fernandez is a defensive-minded coach, and he did get the team last year to punch above its weight on that end in a lot of individual games, and we just haven't seen it this year. I mean, through 4 games, the Nets have allowed 522 points. That is the most in franchise history for this Nets organization. 522 points through 4 games. It's 130.5 points per game, 30th in the NBA, dead last. They're allowing opponents to shoot 57% from the field, dead last, and they're allowing opponents to shoot 46% from 3, also dead last. And the breakdowns are just, it seems like every possession there's breakdowns. And I'm going to get into why that is, but I talked about it after the season opener down in Charlotte that I thought that game was maybe the worst game that I've ever seen on tape from a team defensively. The lack of effort, the transition defense, the half-court defense, all of it was just an abomination. And this Rockets game, it wasn't at that level in terms of the lack of effort, but it was pretty brutal defensively. I mean, the breakdowns are just every possession. And honestly, it's something that I think I should have talked about more going into the year, because I knew that the Nets were going to play a really involved defensive scheme, a really involved defensive coverage. And with all the roster turnover they had, with all of these rookies coming in who were going to play mostly at the point guard position, with these other veterans coming in, you know, getting acclimated to a new system under Jordi Fernandez, these growing pains should have been expected, but this is far worse than even I could have imagined, honestly. This is just, you know, it's really putrid. I mean, on a nightly basis, like, this team is just not competing on that end whatsoever. And that's the thing that I'm most surprised about, because Jordi Fernandez last season got this team to buy in a lot of the time and punch above its weight. We heard about the messages entering the year, guarding 94 feet, putting pressure on opposing offenses, doing all of these things, flying around the court. And the Nets are frankly just doing none of it this season. And the reason that I feel like this team is struggling is because Jordi Fernandez is attempting to implement a very involved defensive coverage, a very aggressive defensive coverage. When you talk about the Nets guarding the pick and roll, they blitz a lot, and they did that last season. But this year, you have the personnel changes, and you look at what they're trying to do. They're blitzing a lot of screens, or they're hedging and recovering on a lot of screens. And when you do that, you have a lot of rotations on the back end, and you need a lot of players who understand how to make those rotations and are physically capable to do that. Also guard at the point of attack in some of these actions. And the Nets just don't have it right now. Like, you look at the personnel limitations that they have right now, the guys guarding at the point of attack. You have obviously the point guards like Yegor Dioman, Ben Saraf, Nolan Traore, rookies who I think, have potential defensively, but none of them I would say are high-level point of attack defenders. And beyond that, the wing corps, Zaire Williams guarding at the point of attack, Terrence Mann guarding at the point of attack, those have really been, that hasn't produced anything successful thus far this season. Neither of those guys, I think, are regarded as like high-level point of attack defenders. I think they've shown things throughout their career at times using their effort, but they're not guys that are going to shut guys down on the perimeter at the point of attack like that. And beyond that, on the wing, you have MPJ, Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, Noah Clowney. I think there's clear athletic limitations there. Obviously, the strength of the defense should be at center with Day'Ron Sharpe and Nick Claxton. But when you're hedging and recovering, when you're blitzing, you're regarding on a lot of low man rotations down low. And you look at the guys that are rotating down low on these low man rotations, a lot of the time it's Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., Jalen Wilson. Like, there's just not a lot of athleticism there. And there's not a lot of, on some nights, there's not a lot of want to there either, particularly, from guys like MPJ or Cam Thomas. And I will say that I thought in this game, Cam Thomas actually had one of his better defensive games thus far in this game against Houston. I don't think that he was a problem. He was actually active, and I like a lot of what he did on that end. But just overall, when you have guys covering at the point of attack, like rookie point guards, like Zaire Williams or Terrence Mann, and then on the back end, you're blitzing these screens, you're hedging and recovering, and your low men are guys like, Cam Thomas, MPJ, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson, whoever you want to say. It's not a recipe for success unless you execute it at just an extremely high level in terms of the timing and all these things and put yourself in just the most optimal position possible. With this team, I wouldn't expect that often, and it hasn't really come to fruition that often. So that brings you to the question, is Jordi Fernandez going to make a change? Because this defense, the level that they're playing at right now, how bad it is, it really just isn't sustainable. Like, it has to get better than this. And I know that it's a tanking season, but this stuff has other ramifications that are harmful for the rookies who are trying to get to know a defensive system. And it also bleeds into the offense. Like, you look at the offense thus far for this Nets team, they're averaging 6.8 fast break points per game, which is obviously dead last in the league. 6.8 fast break points per game. And that's because these opposing offenses are scoring so much that the Nets are just getting nothing in transition. Like, they'll get a steal every once in a while, but the majority of the time they're pulling the ball out of the net on made baskets, and they're not getting out in transition. I said 6.8 fast break points per game. They're allowing 19.5 fast break points per game. So they're getting outscored by nearly 13 fast break points per game, which is truly unbelievable. So there are ramifications to the defense being this bad, but to the question of, is Jordi Fernandez going to make a scheme change? I don't really think so. Like, I think he might tweak it, but Jordi has given indications that this is what he believes in defensively. We all know he's a defensive-minded coach going back throughout his career. And defensively, we asked him about it before the game against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday, or after the game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he was talking about the defensive struggles that the Nets have been having, and he said that, despite that, the best teams in the NBA are aggressive defenses, especially covering the pick and roll. He said, when you look at the NBA last season, you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Indiana Pacers, the two teams that were in the finals, they're aggressive teams guarding the pick and roll. And Jordi did that last season. The Nets blitzed on around 14% of their screens. That was the highest in the NBA since 2021. He's doing it again this season. And if he believes in this to that extent, I wouldn't expect him to make wholesale changes to the scheme defensively this year during a tanking season. Now, having said that, he's going to have to do something. And I think that something is probably getting the players to buy into this more and also getting them better understanding of where they need to be at positionally, because the defensive breakdowns that we're seeing on a mere possession by possession basis, it's not a sustainable way to play. And Jordi Fernandez, after this Rockets loss, really just looked dejected, and he really looked, pretty upset. And he said during his post-game press conference that he needs consistent energy from this team. And he said that he feels it's an insult to take an NBA game for granted, which clearly he was insinuating that his team did this past game. He also said that he expects them to get it fixed. So I would expect an inspired Jordi Fernandez to come out and really lay into this team. And I think that the effort against the Hawks on Wednesday, I would expect it to be better. But I also think that this Nets team just has some glaring limitations. And honestly, that might be part of the calculus. Like, you see this defensive scheme and the personnel that the Nets have not really built best to accentuate that. But I think that The way that Jordi Fernandez is probably going to go about this year is him trying to get this team to play harder, buy into it more, get a better understanding, and letting these rookies and some of these guys play through the growing pains on the defensive end of the floor, because ultimately it is the defensive scheme that they want to play long-term. So if the rookies and some of these other guys that might be here beyond this season can gain a better understanding of it and play through some warts, that's a positive. And if the Nets lose a bunch of games in the process, that's not the worst thing in the world also, because we obviously know what the goals are from draft positioning this season. But outside of the defense, there are some storylines early this season that Nets fans are monitoring. Obviously, the rookie performances, and we got Ben Saraf and Nolan Traore playing extended minutes during this Rocket loss. So what did we see from those guys? Why should fans be encouraged, and what should they be concerned about? I'll get into all that. We'll continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Guys, you can use Game Time to grab seats for any NBA matchup, and it couldn't be simpler. You'll have great seats in minutes. I love that what you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkouts. Plus, you can see exactly what your view looks like before you buy the tickets with their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. And you can even find NBA tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Tap, swipe, ticket, go. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the Nets rookies and their early season performance and their performance during a blowout loss to the Houston Rockets on Monday. And I'm going to start with Ben Saraf because, I think if you look at Ben's stat line or you look at how this game played out, it's nothing to write home about, but I think we saw a lot of positive things that left me encouraged from Ben Saraf in this Rockets game. He played 25 minutes in this game. He finished with 6 points, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. He was 2 of 8 from the field and 2 of 5 from 3. So he made his first threes of his NBA career in this game. And he was also a -9 for the game, which doesn't sound good, but that was the best on the team of any of the players who played real minutes tonight. And I think that you saw some of the positives from Ben Saraf in this game that leave you encouraged about what he can be as a player. And the first thing is the advantage creation. Like I talked about it entering the season. The thing that I was going to be looking for with all of these Nets rookies, I didn't expect any of them to have a positive impact on winning during this rookie campaign. But what I was looking for was, do their top skills play at the NBA level? Do they translate against NBA competition, or do they just look minimized, and do they look like those things aren't going to play out of the gate, aren't going to make an impact out of the gate with this step up in competition? And for Ben Saraf, his biggest things that he brought to the table perceivably after last season and his prior pro seasons was his ball handling and his advantage creation with his size at the point guard position. We obviously know 6'6" was regarded as a high-level ball handler who drove offense for Ratio Far last season in the Bundesliga for a team that went to the finals in Germany's top professional league. So that was obviously a positive. And you look at what we saw the flashes in the preseason, and you look at what Saraf did in this game. And that advantage creation, like, it's not anything that's extremely consistent right now, but we are seeing the flashes of him doing it against some high-level competition. Like, he had a play against Kevin Durant early in this game where we saw him, he was dribbling with his left. He went hezzy cross to his right. He spun back to his left as he likes to do it. In that spin, after he got by Durant, he went to the D-cell, let him fly by, and he actually had a wide open layup that he smoked, but it's just getting to a look like that against Kevin Durant, an older guy, but a 6'10", 6'11" defensive wing who can move, is mobile, understands how to play defense. Ben's ability at 19 years old to get downhill, to create that advantage and really create that look against a defensive player of that caliber, I think that's a major positive. He had another drive later in the game where he drove on Amen Thompson, and he was able to, it was a contested look, but he was able to get open down low and create space down low and get the shot off and almost make it. So the ability to create advantages against players like that, against KD, like Amen Thompson, players of that caliber, I think that that's a resounding positive for Ben. And he was getting downhill at points in this game. And we were also seeing him try to make some reads that you saw, like the timing has just been a hair off early this season, but you see that he's reading the defensive coverages using his size. He's making the right passes. He just has been a little bit off on the timing or the delivery, but still 5 assists to 2 turnovers in this game. And I think that all of that is a positive because you're just looking for, do the skills play that these guys have at the NBA level. And for thus far for Ben Saraf, the ball handling, the advantage creation, it has looked like a positive. He's been the only Nets point guard that has been comfortable initiating offense and not looked overwhelmed in that regard. It really doesn't look too difficult for Ben to handle pressure, to bring the ball up the court. Or there are going to be some turnovers sometimes, sure, but he has looked the best in that regard. And that's a lot of what we heard from Sean Marks and Jordi Fernandez and a lot of these Nets players early this season, was that Ben looked the most NBA ready of these rookies, or at least of these rookie ball handlers. And that certainly has looked like the case early in these regular season games. While it hasn't always been pretty, Ben had a scoreless game against Cleveland. I think he only had 2 points, or he had 2 points against Cleveland. He went scoreless in that Spurs game. But I don't think you're seeing him look completely overmatched as a offensive initiator, physically, anything along those lines. And then today, we finally got some 3-point shooting from Ben Saraf, which has been a major question about him, obviously, entering the NBA. And then at Summer League, I think he, was 1 of 8 or something along those lines through 3 Summer League appearances. He hadn't made a 3 through 4 preseason games and 3 regular season games. And then today he was 2 of 5 from 3, nothing to write home about. But I think we see him getting 5 3-point attempts up in 25 minutes. All that I've been talking about with Ben is the willingness to take these threes, the willingness to take advantage of the openings that he's gotten. I think we've seen that off the catch. He's been willing to take these threes in the preseason, early in these regular season games. But today off the dribble, like we saw him take a couple of deep pull-up threes off the dribble when giving space. We saw another one where he caught the ball at the top of the key and he was given a lot of space by Reed Shepherd. He was like 3 or 4 feet behind the 3-point line, and he didn't dribble into it, but he just pulled up and took that after holding the ball for a few seconds, and he knocked it down. So seeing Ben willing to take those threes when given space and seeing him knock a couple down tonight, I think that is obviously really nice to see. The 3-point shot, there's obviously a lot of work on it, but with the advantage creation that Ben has shown, I'm pretty encouraged right now that even if the 3-point shooting can just get to like a decent level or just slightly below average, I think that Ben has the tools to play a role in the NBA long term. And now, obviously, with those tools, if the 3-point shooting can come along to where he's a good 3-point shooter, that would be a resounding positive. And that's when you're really cooking and you got something. But I think that's the reason the Nets were willing to select Ben Saraf with the 26th pick in the draft and take another point guard. I think they saw the upside. They see the advantage creation. They see the potential. They see the ball handling. And if that 3-point shot can come along with the size that he has as a lead ball handler and some of those tools, it's really an upside play and a dart throw. And it's one that I have agreed with. And based on what we've seen from Ben early this season, I think that it was a pretty good decision from the Nets because he definitely has potential. And you just need to hope that this Nets player development staff can work with him and round out some of those less polished aspects of his game. But at 19 years old, there's a lot of pro aspects to what he's doing right now on the court. And I think you saw that while he was only 2 for 8 from the field. I think you saw that against a Houston Rockets team that is one of the biggest defensive teams that you're ever going to see in the NBA. And I do not think that Ben at all looked overmatched physically in this game. So that's a resounding positive. We also had Nolan Traore got the first extended run of the season with Yegor Dioman sitting out this Rockets game. So what did we see from Nolan? What should fans be looking for moving forward? I'll get to all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. But before that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place that help millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Guys, what I love about Rippling is how it removes the bottlenecks and busy work that slows teams down. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. Guys, let's be honest. Most of us can't name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Guys, Monarch has helped me organize all my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without ever touching a spreadsheet. I love that I can review everything with my partner, see our shared goals, and make better financial decisions together. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the Nets rookies' performance during a blowout loss to the Houston Rockets on Monday. Just hit on Ben Saraf, and Nolan Traore was the other Nets rookie who played in this game. He got extended run for the first time in his career with Yegor Dioman's sideline due to injury management on the second night of a back-to-back. And Nolan, it was a struggle in this one. And I think that this underscored, what a lot of us saw during the preseason and what has been known. And it's that Nolan does not look like a player who's at all ready to get NBA minutes. Can the Nets do it? And can the Nets throw him out there like they did tonight? Sure, because they're tanking and they have that luxury, but he is not ready. He's a guy who is going to need to spend some time in the G League and need a lot more time to develop. You look at what Nolan did in this game. He played 20 minutes. He scored 4 points, all of which came in garbage time in the last minute and a half, I think it was. He had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, a lot of those stats in garbage time. 1 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. And I just said with Ben Saraf, like you're looking for in these games, do their top skills play? And I think we saw some flashes from Nolan Traore, like the thing that he obviously brought to the table or his top skill entering the draft was his advantage creation using his speed and his elite first step in the half court and in transition. Transition was completely neutralized because, as I touched on at the top, the Nets don't get any transition looks because they never get a stop defensively. But in the half court, we saw a few blow-bys where Nolan got to the rim, wasn't able to finish, but for the most part, it was pretty tentative, and the Rockets played a lot of zone defense, and this wasn't a great matchup for Nolan Traore to draw during the first, getting the first extended run of his career. He struggles with size, he struggles with physicality, and this Rockets team just has that out the you-know-what. Like, they're one of the tallest, longest, most physical teams that you're ever going to see, and I think there was a stark contrast that you saw how Ben Saraf dealt with that versus how Nolan Traore dealt with that, and Nolan just looked very overmatched. And, the size is a big part of that. Like, Nolan has good measurables for a point guard, 6'4", 6'8" wingspan, but he's very slight, only 175 pounds, and he's going to need to obviously add that bulk to his frame. But outside of that, Nolan just looks overmatched as a ball handler right now. And like that's not even outside of that. Like those things are linked together because Nolan's frame, he doesn't have the strength to hold these guys, hold these defenders off at the point of attack. And you see that, when he played in the preseason, and you're seeing that now. Like, there are just some possessions where he's getting hounded and he's not really comfortably able to initiate the offense. It just looks like he's near the top of the key or near half court, and he's looking for anywhere else to get the ball. So that is difficult. And then you saw another possession in this game where Nolan was just bringing the ball up, and he just kind of lost the ball in a crossover and it went to the other team. And that's something that we're seeing with Yegor Dioman. We're seeing with Nolan Traore, the ball handling struggles. We're not seeing that with Ben Saraf. And I think that there's 2 factors that play into that. One is that Ben physically is more developed with these guys. He has a little bit more bulk to his frame, a little bit more strength. And then second, he has the tightest handle of this group, and he's able to do those things that Nolan is just not able to comfortably. And I think with Nolan, outside of just the ball handling struggles, like you're not seeing all that much craft. And that's something that I've spoken about on prior episodes with draft analysts, with Lucas Kaplan. He's a guy that's going to need to develop a lot more of that craft with the lack of size that he has at point guard right now. We saw that at times during his tape, really the season before last. He put that on tape some, but last season at St. Quentin, that was a knock on his game, was the lack of pace, the lack of, change of speed, fast to slow, slow to fast. And we really haven't seen that from Nolan. And when he got downhill in this game, he had one take where he tried to go to the basket and it was really just full tilt and he missed the layup at the rim. We saw that a couple of times. Outside of that, there weren't many mid-range looks. There were some looks where he got into the paint, was able to create, passes for other, like skip passes to the wings and things along those lines. But overall, he just looks overmatched physically, and it doesn't look like it's a situation where he's going to be able to play extended minutes at the NBA at this point. Like the Nets sent Drake Powell and Danny Wolf down to the G League, and both of those guys are going to be practicing with the Long Island Nets when they start training camp this week. And I would expect Nolan Traore to probably go down there if Yegor Dioman is at a point where he's getting to full strength and he's going to be able to play consistently, and the Nets have Yegor and they have Saraf. Nolan is going to need to get some run in the G League because right now he's just not at a point in his development where he can play against NBA level competition, it seems like, and getting him down in the G League and allowing him to rep some of these things, work on his body, work on his handle, try to work on that craft versus a opposition that he's going to be, not as overwhelmed by. I think that will bode well for his development. And I think that we're going to see that. Last thing I want to touch on is another one of the Nets' young players. The youth, the development is going to be a main theme of this season alongside the draft picks. And Noah Clowney is one of the Nets' other young players who is, sort of not in a make or break year, but definitely under a microscope. He's entering his third season. The Nets picked up his team option for next season, but they're going to face a decision on his future soon. And with him, being 21 years old now, having 2 years under his belt in the NBA, it is a little bit of a sign how he performs this year of what his long-term outlook is going to be, whether he's going to be a piece for this Nets team moving forward. And the early returns on Noah have not been encouraging. It's looked pretty rough for him. We gave him some grace last season because he started off hot shooting from three, and then he had the 3 ankle injuries, and it didn't look like he was really able to get a rhythm. He cooled off from 3, and then there were obviously the glaring limitations in terms of what he can do as an offensive player off the bounce, off the dribble, as a guy attacking closeouts or being an off-script creator. And thus far, it's looked pretty rough. Noah, through 4 games, is 6 of 24 from the field, 25%. He's 4 of 16 from 3, 25%. And the 3-point shooting, I'm not even that worried about. I think that will come around. I think that Noah has the shot to be a decent to good 3-point shooter in the NBA. So I think that's just some poor variance right now. But, just everything else that he's trying to do, it just doesn't look like there's much to his game. He's slightly less 3-point dominant this season through 4 games. I think 66% of his shots are threes. Last year, that was 71%. But he's still extremely 3-point dominant. When he gets the ball, we've seen him try to do some more things driving to the basket at times, but it just looks very awkward. It just looks very clunky. He doesn't look comfortable putting the ball on the floor. He's 2 of 8 on 2s through 4 games, which obviously is not a positive for a player who's 6'9", 6'10". Like we talked about entering the season, Noah adding some size, adding some bulk to his frame. And I think that's a positive. And we've seen it play at times, like maybe individual plays where he's looked a little bit more comfortable bumping guys off of his spot. But ultimately, when he's had to put the ball on the floor, he either has looked uncomfortable doing it or he just hasn't done it. And right now, it just looks like the question about Noah Clowney is going to be offensively, what is he outside of a 3-point shooter? He's kind of this tweener guy between a 4 and a 5 size-wise. The Nets have committed to him being a power forward. And with that, he's going to have to put the ball on the floor. He's going to have to be able to do some of these things because in the NBA, the days of just like, for playoff level teams, the days of just like planting these guys in the corner and having them just sit there and be spot up shooters and not do anything else, those days are really just like becoming behind the NBA. The NBA is so deep now. It's so offensively talented. Guys need to be able to put the ball on the floor, need to be able to make decisions, need to be able to create shots for themselves and others off script or within the flow of the offense. And Noah Clowney right now is not showing an ability to do that. And with that, the three-point shooting, which is supposed to be the major strength, has not been good through 4 games, 4 of 16. But it's early. We're going to have to see, how things come along. Obviously, like Noah battled the injuries last season. We're going to need to give him an extended runway. I think the three-point shooting will get better. But right now, I have a lot of concerns about what Noah is offensively outside of just a three-point shooter. And those were concerns that we had, last season and entering this season. And the early returns, these first 4 games, have really done nothing to dispel them. I think it's only added to those concerns. So not great to see from Noah thus far, but we'll see with an extended runway if he can gain some improvement. That's all I have for tonight's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. But then it's going to be back at Barclays Center on Wednesday against the Hawks, and they got a few more days of practice before they will host the Philadelphia 76ers on Sunday. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.